Hey there, I'm Jen Mueller, host of the Unrivaled podcast, the podcast where athletes share their journey to becoming pros and the passions that fuel them outside their sport. Today, our guest is Jonotthan Harrison, center for the New York Jets. Offensive line isn't a glamorous position, but it's an important one. And so is the work Jonotthan does to eliminate bullying. We'll get to that part of the story soon enough, but first we should say hello. Hi, Jonotthan.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, it's pretty good. I love a chance to talk about football and to see what actually drives athletes. And usually I would start a conversation with an athlete talking about his or her sports background, but I don't know that we can do that with your story because we need to understand how you got to football and the challenges I think that sports caused for you growing up. What do you recall most vividly about playing sports with your classmates in middle school?
I remember that I couldn't make any of the teams. That was one thing. I was athletic, but I was really big, and I couldn't make most of the teams. So I remember not making the basketball team. Football, I was too heavy to play football at that age, and I think I did track one year, but middle school track was just like going to PE basically. So yeah, those are my memories. But outside of that, at home playing like backyard football and stuff like that in the neighborhood. Had a blast, had a blast doing that. I realized that, it was something that I would like to do, but I just never had the opportunity.
And it seems interesting in context of your full story. You were a big kid. You had friends that you were playing with, and yet a lot of your classmates didn't want to be friends with you. In fact, they went to the opposite extreme and bullied you. How and why did that start? Do you know?
I know for sure 5th grade is the earliest that I fully remember. It was a situation where, I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to fit in and hang out with my peers and have friends. At times, they would kind of act like they were my friend, but in front of other people, they would do something to be cool or be funny and mess with me. I remember 5th grade playing soccer, and we two captains were at recess, 2 captains picking teams. I was the last one picked, of course. And then I'm on the team, and I'm playing my heart out, being competitive. And at one point, I just remember like my teammate just like pegging me with the ball, and like everyone just like laughing. And then like I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. I just deal with this, and eventually I'll be accepted, type thing. And then a couple minutes later, someone just slid tackled me and just took my legs out. And then, like, okay, everyone's laughing, blah, blah, blah. But hey, like, let me just do this. Let me not, break down crying or something like that because everyone's messing with me. And there was really like a lot of that growing up. And then like I'd act tough at school and act cool at school. And then I get home, and 9 out of 10 times I was super emotional to my mom and my dad, just, saying like, what was going on at school. And of course my mom's like, don't retaliate, make sure, you stay strong, and, don't let them see that it bothers you. But of course, that's easier said than done.
Well, and what is the internal struggle that you grappled with? Because there's lots of different ways to deal with bullies, but you already said your size kind of played a factor in how you ultimately had to handle it.
Yeah. That was the only way. That would have been the only way to kind of put my foot down and establish some dominance, would be, to assert my size and to show that, hey, like I'm bigger than you. But that wasn't my mindset. Despite me being that large, in my mind, I was similar to everybody else. And I didn't have that aggressive like quality at that age. When I got older, like I found, whatever fuels me, and I can turn it on and off need be. But, at that age, I really didn't have that. I wasn't a fighter. I liked everybody. I wanted everybody to like me, and it just wasn't me.
And when we talk about your size, how big were you?
Let me put it this way. I broke 200 pounds in 5th grade, but leaving middle school after 8th grade, I was 6'3", 270 pounds. And I left high school that exact height and weight. I started working out then. So I started to tone up a little bit.
But still, it helps to put into context and perspective. You're thinking you're just like all the other kids. Meanwhile, you really are a mountain of a man.
Yeah.
in a little boy's body who's trying to figure all of this out. How did you ultimately end up handling that situation with the bullies?
I didn't. That's the worst part. I didn't. I just dealt with it. Middle school, the next batch of bullying was, I was in band, and because I couldn't make any of the sports teams, I was in band, and I was a pretty good musician. I played guitar and French horn, and I traveled to New Orleans and New York in middle school to perform in concerts, and it was something I was confident at. And like everyone in the band room was cool with me because we were able to relate. So I had friends in there. But then outside of that, the kids that were jocks and the cool kids in school and all of that, they thought, they found it funny to kind of like try to tackle me every time I would go to lunch every single day. And the way my school was set up, we were on a hill, so you enter the school way at the top of the hill, and then the further you go into the school, like the further down this hill you're going. And the cafeteria is way at the bottom of the hill. So the whole thing in middle school, plus like the lines were long. Let me just add that the lines were always long. The whole thing in middle school was to preset your locker. You throw your books in your locker after class and you sprint to the lunchroom to get like a good spot in line. And it was just a thing. Like everyone, you see like a mob of kids running. And they knew which way I went every day. And every day there would be, 4 or 5 of them just kind of coming up, and you just see their faces light up when I turn the corner. And the biggest one of them all would just come running at me and just full on, just body to body, just try to tackle me. And there's times I would like jump over the rail and I'm running in the grass trying to get away, and they would just chase me. It was just a thing. Like rightfully so, I should have got up and tried to fight this kid. Like I should have 100% tried to fight this kid. And I would never tell anybody to, but to that extent, like I should have been angry, but I would just kind of just dust myself off and just continue on my way.
What was the commitment that you made to yourself after everything that you experienced?
I guess it was just to prove everybody wrong. That's still a lot of my fuel to this day. To prove everyone wrong, the people that say hurtful things to me or physically, hurt me or mess with me, whatever. There's even teachers that definitely dished some form of bullying / discrimination, whatever you want to call it. I remember leaving high school. I'm like, what? I will work myself to the ground to prove everybody wrong. I don't care if I'm bleeding, spitting, whatever. Like I will work myself to the ground to prove everyone wrong, because I know at some point I will be able to look back and kind of chuckle at the situation. Like granted, it definitely messed me up some, emotionally and mentally, but, I can look back at those people that, weren't the nicest to me or said mean things to me or said I'd never be anything. And I can look back and confidently say like, hey, look, look where I am now and look where you are. Because unfortunately, a lot of these people, didn't do much after high school, and it's sad. It's not something to be proud of, but they hurt me so bad, and they really didn't do much after their high school glory years.
When did the bullying subside?
Later high school is when it started to calm down. That's when I started to slowly make my way into the popular group and the cool kids, whatever you want to call them, because of football. And the fact that not many people got recognized for football at my school, and I had a lot of big schools coming to visit me. Like obviously these people were becoming friends for the wrong reasons at the time, but they weren't bothering me anymore. They treated me with a little bit of respect, and everyone deserves a little bit of respect.
Even though the bullying started to subside in high school, when did it actually stop bothering you that was the experience that you had?
I don't think it'll ever stop bothering me, to be honest with you, sad as it may be. I vividly remember everything to this day. And I can say that I know it's definitely affected me more than I'll ever realize. And like I've talked to people about it, and it's helped make me stronger in a lot of ways. But the fact that I went through that, I don't think will ever stop fully bothering me.
I think you've channeled a lot of that hurt and used your platform to help other people who are in similar situations. What kind of comfort do you hope to give students when you go and talk on campuses?
I just hope that they realize that they're not alone, because that's one of the biggest things. Once you're going through that, you feel so alone. And no parent can fix how alone you feel in that situation. Because once you go to school, you're on your own. It's not okay for people to feel like that. That's just the way that people naturally deal with things. People are terrified to open up about these situations. And so many people, adults included, so many people just bottle all this up. And it's just this load of additional weight that you carry with you for the rest of your life.
So what advice do you offer for either kids dealing with it or people who have witnessed bullying and don't know what to do next?
People dealing with it, speak up. Speak up and don't be afraid of hurting someone's feelings, or don't be afraid of not being cool. Like, that's probably going to happen. Like, you speak up, like if you go tell like an authority figure at your school, you know, so-and-so is messing with me or saying this about me, or now with social media, so-and-so is, you know, posting pictures of me, like all this stuff. Like I've heard of all kinds of cases, but don't be afraid to speak up. Like, you might get shunned by some of your peers, being labeled like a snitch or a rat or whatever it may be. But in the long run, you will be much better. You will be much happier, rather than just bottling it up and then just constantly throughout the day, just reenacting and replaying and rethinking all of what you've gone through. Like, there's times that I could be doing something important and then my mind would just drift to like a random memory, you know, from back in the day. You know, don't be afraid and look at the bigger picture. At the end of the day, you have to worry about you and you being happy, rather than trying to impress everybody else who you won't even talk to as soon as you leave high school. The only people you keep in touch with a handful of people typically. Every once in a while, you know, once, twice a year, you may catch up with like an old classmate, but in the long run, you're going to keep in touch with only the people that cared about you and that treated you with respect. So don't worry about pleasing all these other people. And for the people that are witnessing, you know, a situation like that and that aren't sure what to do, they need to speak up as well for the sake of that other individual. Like, if you really care or, you know, have any kind of empathy, like, you should really speak up, whether you reach out to the person themselves just to be a friend, just to talk to them, you know, just to be a shoulder to cry on, whether you do that or whether you discreetly or secretly go tell a person of authority and you're like, hey, look, like, this is going on. Please, I don't want to get involved with this, but I just can't sit here and watch this. This is what's going on. Like, something needs to be done.
So I know that you work with a specific organization, Stomp Out Bullying. How'd you get involved and why do you want other people to get involved?
Kind of accidentally stumbled on it because I never really publicly spoke about my experiences growing up. There was a community service opportunity, you know, with the Jets to go speak to, you know, an assembly of kids about my experiences being bullied. And I had never done anything like that before. And I was like, you know what? Sure. Let me do this. So I remember going and I was just sweating bullets. Like, I was so nervous. I was like, man, what am I going to say? I know I'm going to stutter, all of this. And yeah, the first assembly, like, despite all the sweat and stumbling through, it went well. And I felt great afterwards because, like, I looked around the room and there was a couple hundred kids there. I think it was like 300 or 400. And I looked around the room and they were just so engaged in my story. Kind of realized, like, to them, this is really shocking seeing, you know, this large NFL player saying that he was bullied, you know, all growing up. And it never really hit me like that because Stomp Out Bullying itself, of schools in the New Jersey and New York area, or we will, you know, talk to assemblies of kids and just raise awareness and kind of, you know, share my story, one, and then two, kind of explain what I could have done better, what I should have done, and ways that they can handle those situations now. And then, like, I always emphasize, like, me growing up, I didn't have Instagram at my fingertips. And that's the biggest issue right now. I asked a group of 4th and 5th graders who had Instagram, and all of their hands went up. And I'm like, this is just insane right now. And like, you know, I was kind of break that down and say, like, hey, look, that's a form of bullying as well. Commenting something nasty on somebody's picture is a form of bullying as well. But, you know, just So just kind of talk about situations that they would currently be facing and just ways to deal with it, and just let them know it is okay to speak up and to be different.
I think that's great advice. And I think at some point in time, football might have helped to channel your emotions. Was that ever kind of an outlet?
Oh, 100%. It's strict. I'm not going to say strictly an outlet, but it's one of the biggest outlets for sure. I'm allowed to legally, take my aggression out on somebody else. It feels good. It just feels good to be able just to like kind of let some aggression out at times. And it's just like, that applies to whatever your niche may be. If you're a musician, like if you're a drummer or something, like go just rock out for a little bit. If you're a painter, just sit there and then just distant out, just fade away in your painting and just paint a beautiful picture. Whatever that may be, just use that as an outlet, because you can tell yourself, oh, it's fine. But if that thought even crosses your mind once, it's not fine. You just tucked it away for now. It's just under a cover for now, and eventually will pop back up. And nobody will ever fully heal from scarring like that. Nobody will ever fully heal, but there are ways to better deal with it.
Well, and for you, when you found football, not only was it a way to let out some of that aggression, but as it turned out, you were pretty good at that. Although, as you mentioned earlier, that was not the first sport that you were playing. Seems pretty obvious when I look at the stat line that says you're 6'4", 300 pounds, that you were destined to play football. We know that you had a band career in there. How did you get introduced to the sport of football?
Like I said, my family they weren't big football fans. There was never Sundays where we would sit there and watch football games. Played some football video games. So I kind of, I always kind of liked it. And then I would play backyard football. It was huge in my area. Like we would meet on Sundays, on the weekend at the same park. Everyone bring all their gear. And we were just playing just true backyard football, just like as organized as we could make it. And I just loved it. And I was like, man, I just wish I could play. I wish I could play. My eighth grade year comes around, and a couple of the local fathers decided that there were enough kids. I'm using rejects lightly. Like we always just joke now, just saying like, hey, we were the rejects of the area. But all of us that couldn't play on the other team ended up on this team. And there was no weight limit. Our gear was just hand-me-down scrap gear. Like the amount of rust and stuff on some of our pads, could not have been healthy or safe. Our jerseys, my number, I had to glue my number on multiple times because it would always fall off. It was rough. It was just because it was such a low budget makeshift team. And that was my first year getting introduced to football. I didn't know anything. I didn't even know how to get in the stance. I barely knew all the various positions of football. And I remember I went and they were like, hey, look, what number would you like? What position are you going to want to play? I was like, I want to play fullback. I want number 40, like Allstott. Coach's son was like, the coach's son has 40. You're going to have to pick another number. So I was like, all right, let me go with 44. So I picked 44. I had every intention of playing fullback. I would have dominated because I was still larger than a lot of people there. And coach was like, I'm sorry, you're too big. You have to play offensive line. So that whole year I wore number 44 playing offensive line. And ever since I put my hand in the dirt, I never left. Never left the O-line.
So who gave you the confidence to start thinking about playing football professionally?
I'll say I never fully had the confidence until I started playing professionally. I honestly could say a lot of that was probably due to some form of psychological trauma. To be completely honest with you, there were many, many times when, I transitioned to high school, the coach was like, hey, look, you're not playing band. You have to play football. You're not going to be in the band. Sorry. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'll play football. Didn't even set foot on JV or the freshman team, went straight to varsity. And as soon as I got there, a lot of the upperclassmen started messing with me. So that was just this whole new batch of bullying came through. They were not nice. All of them would just tell me oh man, I'll run you over and blah, 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 and this and that. And then one day I got one of them. One day we were doing a drill and I put one of the dudes on his back. And that was my first step of confidence. I'm like, hey, look, I might be kind of good at football. So then I was at that phase for a while. Then colleges started coming around. I was like, you know what? All right. This is great. I'm an academic guy. And if I can get a free ride to a big name school and get some degrees out of it, I'll save my parents a lot of hassle. I'll save me a lot of hassle, and I'll be on the right course for my adult life. So going into college, that was honestly my mentality. I'm like, hey, look, like I work hard, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, clearly I'm not that good. Like nobody really fully respected me. So let me make sure I handle my education. And the running joke with some of my close college friends is the offensive line coach at the time asked me to draw a pie chart of how I separate my life. He's like, how you separate your social life, academic life, and your football life. And it took me a while, but I think I ended up putting like 40 or 50% academics, like 30% football, and like 20% social or something. And he was like, so you're here and you're telling me that football isn't the biggest priority in your life. And like, it's still a running joke because no one else in the room put like any academics larger than football. So even then, and in my fourth year in college, I was a highly rated center at the time. And everyone was saying like, hey man, you need to enter the draft. Like this would be your time to enter the draft. And in my head, I'm like, there's no way that I'm good enough to get drafted. Let me stay for my last year. And I chose to stay for my last year for the education. And I had the conversation with my mom. I remember as vivid as day. I was like, look, I have one degree. I have one bachelor. Let me work on a second bachelor's degree, stay this last year because the NFL is, not guaranteed and all of that. So stay the last year, didn't have as great of a football year, fall through the draft, get signed as an undrafted free agent to the Colts. And that's what started, my NFL career. Still don't really believe it, especially I'm undrafted. I still don't believe that I have what it takes. And 6 plays into my very first preseason game against the Jets, coincidentally, in 2014, 6 plays in, the center sprained his ankle, and I had no intention of playing. Like, I'm just kind of chilling on the sideline, and I hear my name being called, and I get thrown into the fire. And after that game, I realized I was like, I might have what it takes. This isn't as bad as I thought. And that started my career. So,
what surprised you? I mean, that is a wild ride. I can't imagine that there's a whole lot that surprises you after that. But what surprised you about your transition to the NFL?
People told me that it's different. It's different in college and it's a business. But, what really surprised me is how much of a job it really is. It's like people really think that we just show up on Sundays and as an offensive lineman, I just hit the closest person to me. I just throw a ball between my legs and hit the closest person to me, whatever. But there's so much more that goes into it on and off the field. It's really a full-time job. Is it a hell of a job? Yeah, it's a great job to have. Don't get me wrong, but it's truly a job if you want to be successful. I'm not including injuries or anything like that, but the guys that don't approach it as a job typically don't last as long. Like if they're healthy and everything, like if they typically don't last as long, it's just a trend. The guys that you see last, 10, 12 years, like it's truly a job. They show up every day and handle business. And I respect that. And that was the biggest shocker. And I'm very fortunate and very glad to be able to call myself a professional football player, an NFL player.
What was the moment that you just had to pinch yourself to make sure that you were really in the NFL?
Once again, that first preseason game against the Jets, I get thrown in the fire. Like I grabbed my helmet, I get thrown in the fire, and Matt Hasselbeck's the quarterback. I love Matt. That's my guy. And he's the quarterback. And I'm looking at him like, of course, I'm like, yes, sir, whatever you need, sir. Like I'm just fresh out of college. And he was like, loosen up, man. He's like, it's still football. He's like, just loosen up. And he started singing a Family Guy song in the huddle before he told us to play. And I just started cracking up. I'm like, is this real life right now? And then after that, we turn around, snap the ball, and then we're just back there playing football. And I was like, man, like this is he's a legend in my eyes. Like this is Matt Hasselbeck just joking with me in the huddle. Like I'm about to snap a football to him. And that's kind of when it hit me. I'm like, wow, this is the NFL.
Last question related to your career and your story. What's the obstacle that could have sidetracked or derailed your career if you would have let it? And I know that bullying is a big part of the story, but I'm wondering if there's something else, another obstacle that you had to overcome.
I would say my social life, because once I got to college, the University of Florida, when I first enrolled, the team was down playing for the national championship. So I was celebrating back on campus while they were coming back from the game, because I enrolled early. Nobody knew me from Joe Schmo, before I got to college. But once I got there and I'm wearing football sweats and the football gear around campus and everything, I was in a whole different light. Like, it was nothing like I ever experienced. Like, I started to kind of become cool with some people in high school, but college, just being a Florida Gator football player, any of the athletes at that point, but at that time especially, being on the football team, whoever you were, like, it was a big deal. And it felt great. And it was like one of those things that it was just kind of like initially addicting, where I was just like, man, this is great. Like, I can go to restaurants, I can go to bars, whatever. Like, people want to talk to me. They want to get to know me. They want to shake my hand. And it was just a cool feeling. And if I would just continued on that initial course of just kind of being addicted to that lifestyle, I don't think I would have made it out of college successfully. And at one point I kind of just I don't know exactly when the turning point was, but I was like, I can still have fun, but let me do it responsibly. Like, I don't want to make the paper. I don't want to make the news. I don't want to miss a conditioning test. I don't want to flunk my classes. And I kind of dialed it back, and I would have fun in moderation, but definitely not as much as when I first got to college.
I would imagine that is something that you advise many students to do.
Yes. The fun will always be there. Enjoy yourself some, because college is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, no matter what school you go to. Enjoy yourself in moderation, but keep the task at hand. Don't waste the opportunity. It's too great of an opportunity. Do something with it. Not everyone's going to make it to the NFL, but if you put forth the effort, you're guaranteed to get some kind of degree from that school that you got a scholarship to.
I think that is great advice. And the task at hand today was to spend some time with you, to hear your story, to have you share it in a way that helps others. You have absolutely done that. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Best of luck this season, Jonotthan.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was great meeting you.
This is the Unrivaled podcast, giving fans a refreshing look at sports. I'm Jen Mueller. You can find our complete Inside the Jersey profile on Jonotthan Harrison of the New York Jets at unrivaled-sports.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Look for Unrivaled's next Inside the Jersey profile of a likable professional athlete coming soon.